What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming back at you guys with another season comments section. If you guys definitely give me a thumbs up, let you guys that the audio was good. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys bearing with me. I finally got my live streams back. So let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Definitely put those thumbs up. Let me know that you guys can hear me in the chat. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Y'all give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know that you guys can hear me. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Got my boy Big N in the chat. What's going on, man? You guys let me know with a thumbs up that y'all can hear me. If y'all can hear me in the chat, definitely give me a thumbs up. I ain't seen no thumbs up yet. Oh, there we go, Joseph. I appreciate it, Joseph. What's up, man? I hope you guys is having a great night. I had a blessed, like I said, every Wednesday night during the off season. What's the word, DirtyBird? This is season 3. What's the word, DirtyBird? So I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Shout outs to everybody that's in the chat so far, but definitely share out this content. Definitely, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. We're about 30 subscribers away from 2,000, so you guys definitely hit that subscribe button for your boy. But as I mentioned, we got Big Ant in the chat. He says, "Jew back on the scene." Yes, sir. We got my boy Smith right here. 1/3 of the heavy hitters. Boy 6 man, 6 MK. Check his like and subscribe button for my boy. We got Joseph in the chat. Man, I appreciate it. He said, "What's good? What's going on, man? I appreciate you giving me the thumbs up." We got Sonya in the building. What's going on, Sonya? I hope you're having a great night. We got Blizz818. What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as well. And my boy D Coleman. What's going on, man? Like I said, man, I've been live. My live streaming got restricted for a little bit, but I'm glad you guys stuck it out with me. My boy Mike and K Styles held it down, man. Mike, y'all held it down for your boys. I appreciate that. But we back onto the weekly scheduled program every Wednesday night, DirtyBird, and then on the last Wednesday night of each month, we'll try to give you guys a heavy hitter show, whether it be me, K Styles, and Mike will shows and things of that nature. See, which is going to be coming in about 2 weeks. So definitely looking for chopping it up with you guys and chopping it up with the heavy hitters as well. So you guys continue to stay tuned. We're going to have a lot coming for you guys. And shout outs to Michael Walker in the chat. I appreciate the night as well. So we're going to go ahead and start it because you guys know I don't like to be on 15 minutes. So we're going to jump right into the first topic of the night. And we're going to kind of start with the Falcons news, which we probably already, you guys have seen it. It actually happened on yesterday. I didn't get a chance to drop a video. Mike and the crew yesterday kind of touched on the whole Marcus Mariota being a Falcon. You guys' thoughts and give you guys my thoughts on Marcus Mariota, him being released yesterday by the Falcons, saving the top $12 million. I think this was a huge move for our Atlanta Falcons. And this just gives us more cap space and this thing. With this whole Mariota situation, I wish him nothing but the best. Dude, they played pretty well when he was here. Of course, he didn't play as well as he would. I did think that he was going to be able to possibly resurrect his career. That didn't happen here in Atlanta, but he did keep us in a lot of games year. We had a lot of close one-score games. At this point, I think Marcus will be a backup moving forward. I don't see him possibly being a starter anywhere else. And to be selfish, I kind of Marcus Mariota to be the backup for Desmond Ridder like this season. But once he got benched, kind of left the team and winning, got his the writers on the wall then that at some point during the offseason he was going to get released. Going to be brought. A lot of people felt like he quit on the team and stuff like that. So I definitely kind of get you guys' thoughts on how that Marcus Mariota has moved on. What are we going to do as far as the backup quarterback situation, Lamar Jackson, and talking about guys that the Falcons might bring in the draft? But I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on how do you feel about the backup situation? Who do you think we should bring in? Last night when I was checking out the crew, Mad Mike and Six Man and Juan, the therapist, the Falcons therapist, Big and some think should be the backup quarterback for our Atlanta Falcons. Personally, I think that Taylor Heineke was a name that was thrown out. And to me, I think he would be a good fit as the backup quarterback if they would go with like a veteran guy. He plays with the Washington Commanders, and he's kind of been like a journeyman quarterback for them. He's kind of been their backup. He played in Carolina, but I like his game. He's kind of mobile for a white quarterback. You wouldn't think of him as a mobile quarterback, but he is one of those guys that's actually pretty mobile. And he's a guy that won some games for the Washington Commanders over the last couple of years. He started a couple games for the Washington Commanders. He's been a backup in Carolina, been a backup for Washington. And I think he would be a good fit if they decide to go with a veteran guy because he's been around the league. And he really is a backup. I don't really want to have to spend a lot of money on a backup quarterback. But we've seen in the playoffs with the 49ers and Brock Purdy, we've seen how important it is to have a backup quarterback because you never know when your quarterback is going to go down with injury. So I definitely want to get you guys' thoughts. You guys give me some names of guys y'all think that y'all would like to see at that backup quarterback position. Now, I see D. Coleman here, and this is an interesting name he threw out. I think everybody's going to probably say no to this, but Baker Mayfield. I wouldn't mind Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield is one of those guys that's a lightning rod. A lot of people, dislike Baker Mayfield. Personally, I think he's all right as a backup. I think he would be okay as a backup, but I don't know if the Falcons are going to bring him in because he's kind of one of those guys similar to like a Cam Newton. They say he kind of has a big personality. He's really brash about his personality and stuff like that. So I don't know if the Falcons want him. He's a guy to be headbutting people without a helmet, headbutting his teammates like he did last year when we played against Carolina. On that Thursday night. So I don't know if Baker Mayfield would be a guy that a lot of Falcons fans would actually like as a backup. But that is another name other than Taylor Heineke as a veteran guy. I do kind of like Baker Mayfield because he's one of those guys that has experience. And I really feel like if you're going to have a backup quarterback, you're going to kind of need a guy that has some type of experience, a guy that can help Desmond Ridder when he comes off the field over there looking at the tablet and things of that nature to kind of tell Desmond Ridder things that he's seeing from the sideline and things he's seeing as he's looking through the tablet on the sideline. So I think Baker Mayfield wouldn't be a bad idea, to be honest with you guys, but I really do like Taylor Heineke a lot. I think Taylor Heineke would cost you less money. And I really think that the Falcons may end up drafting another quarterback as well, to be honest with you guys. But I think those two names that they threw out, Baker Mayfield and Taylor Heineke, are interesting. And we had a couple more people join us as well. Let's see here. Oh, I look like my boy Mad Mike. He's in the chat. He said, it looked like he said, "Dang, Jew, why didn't tell me you were on?" I put it on Twitter that I was going live at 8. So definitely y'all share this content out. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. My boy Ocha Shadow, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me. And Mike says Taylor Heineke by Mad Mike. Yeah, Taylor Heineke is a guy I like a lot as a backup. I think he's like one of those journeyman kind of guys, similar to like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he knows deep down he's not really a starter, but he's a guy who, if your quarterback gets hurt, he can come in and give you, win you a couple games if Desmond Ridder for somehow, knock on wood, gets injured. So I definitely like Taylor Heinicke. And like I said, he has that experience, and he's kind of been like a journeyman backup type deal where he's not going to necessarily come in and possibly take Desmond Ridder's spot as the starter. And what's going on, Brian Peoples? I appreciate you joining me as well. And I appreciate you guys' comments in the chat. Let's see. And D. Coleman, he says sneaky athletic. Yeah, Taylor Heinicke is one of those guys that's sneaky athletic. And I also like this name right here from Brian Peoples as well. He says Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think that this would be bad either. Being that Mitchell Trubisky has played under Dave Ragone, who's like the quarterback's coach now, and he helps with the offense. He's kind of like our offensive coordinator, or he helps Arthur Smith with play calling and things of that nature. I think that Mitchell Trubisky wouldn't be bad as well as a backup. I'm not a fan of Mitch Trubisky as a starting quarterback, but as a backup, I think he would be a solid starter. A solid backup for the Atlanta Falcons if we decided to go with him. Andrew G, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me tonight. And this is one of the members of my channel, so shouts out to Andrew G. I appreciate you, man, being a member of my channel as well. Let's see here. William Holmes says Derek Carr. I don't think the Falcons are going to go with Derek Carr. Derek Carr is like a franchise quarterback, so we're not looking to bring in one of these guys to be like the franchise quarterback. So I definitely wouldn't go with a Derek Carr, unfortunately. I appreciate you throwing the name out there, but Derek Carr is one of those guys that I actually think kind of got a raw deal with the Raiders. To me, he still should be the starter with the Raiders, but I do think whatever team he goes to, whether it's the Jets or whatever team he goes to, Washington, maybe the Washington Commanders, I think that Derek Carr is one of those guys he's an average. I'll say he's like right below that top 10 quarterback. So he's like probably 11, between 11 and 15. So he's like a middle of the pack type guy. He's not a great quarterback, but he's an average quarterback. He's a guy well enough. If you put the right pieces around him, I think he would be a good quarterback. But Derek Carr is going to want to come in somewhere and start. And I don't want Derek Carr here in Atlanta. I don't really think that he would fit the scheme that we're trying to run. And let's see here. And K-Style said it best: experience. Yeah, I agree with that as well. When you're looking for a veteran guy, you're looking for a backup quarterback, you're looking for a veteran guy that can kind of help Desmond Ridder. And that's why I was disappointed in the Marcus Mariota situation with him leaving the team. He kind of did Desmond Ridder dirty in that situation. And I wasn't a fan of him leaving the team. Even if he was going to get knee surgery and his wife had a baby and all of that, I still kind of feel like he left Desmond Ridder hanging in that situation as the veteran, as the leader, one of the leaders of the team. I think he definitely did. He kind of hung Desmond Ridder out to dry. So I definitely and shouts out to my bro for the $2 super chat. He says, love, bro. Man, I appreciate you. That's my baby bro right there. So I appreciate you with the $2 super chat. And let's see here. But we're going to move on from the quarterback talk. Unless you guys want to throw out some names, I kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts on some of the guys that are in the draft. What are you guys' thoughts on drafting a quarterback in the draft? Do you guys think that the Falcons will take a quarterback in the draft to possibly be a backup to Desmond Ridder? Because I do think that that's something that's interesting as well. I wouldn't want the Falcons to take a quarterback at 8, but it's some guys in the draft, and we've been breaking down these prospects. Me, Mike, K Styles, the AFN crew, we all been breaking down these drafts, doing mock drafts and things of that nature, and breaking down some of these guys in the draft. So I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts. If the Falcons did go in the draft and take a quarterback, which quarterback would you guys be interested in taking if the Falcons did go quarterback in the draft before we move on? And I've seen a couple more names out there, and I want to give a couple more shout outs to you guys as well, because more people has joined in the chat as well. And I appreciate the 30 or 28 people we have in here. Let's see. So Blizz says Minshew. I guess he's talking about Gardner Minshew. I'm not a fan of Gardner Minshew. For whatever reason, he did play in Jacksonville for a while, but I felt like he was kind of overrated. I'm not a fan of Gardner Minshew, even though he's a veteran. I don't know if he would fit in his scheme, and he actually played bad last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. When he finally got in the game for Jalen Hurts in those couple games, he was a turnover machine. Like that game against Dallas, he had like 3 or 4 interceptions. Yeah, we can't have that. Like I wouldn't. I don't know about Gardner Minshew. He was. I wouldn't want Gardner Minshew as the backup quarterback. Let's see here. And Mike over here talking about Mandalorian. He said, I stopped watching The Mandalorian to support my boy Jew. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, peeps. Yeah, man. See here. And shouts out to the Falcons therapist in the chat as well. I appreciate you joining me tonight as well. Y'all go show him some love. Go show the AFN crew some love. That's our partners over there. So y'all go check them out as well. And I agree. Juan says probably in the later rounds as far as a quarterback. Yeah, I definitely think it would be the later rounds. I don't see the Falcons taking a quarterback in the top. I'll say maybe in the top 3 rounds. I doubt the Falcons go quarterback unless it's somebody that they have fell in love with, and unless one of these quarterbacks drop like an Anthony Richardson, which I think he's going to be a guy that probably gets taken early, or the kid Hooker out of Tennessee. If he's dropped somehow in the draft and he's there like in the mid or late 2nd round or early 3rd round, maybe the Falcons go with someone like that. But at this point, I agree. Yeah, I don't think the Falcons are taking any quarterbacks early. Let's see here. Todrick Davis, what's going on, man? He says Stetson Bennett. Nah, I'm good on Stetson Bennett. I know Mike somewhere is laughing. Yeah, I can't do it, man. Stetson Bennett, he had a great college career, and I wish him nothing but the best, but I don't think Stetson Bennett is going to be a guy that's going to – he may get drafted, but I don't know if his game translates to the NFL, just to be honest, at his size. I don't know if his game will translate. I do think he's a guy who overachieved in college, and he was a great college quarterback, but it's levels to this. And I don't think that Stetson Bennett is a guy that's going to play, be a great NFL quarterback or even a good NFL quarterback. But he proved me wrong in college, so he may end up being better than a lot of people think. Let's see. I skipped over. Let's see. Toxic Falcons. What's going on, man? He says Teddy Bridgewater. That's another name that I think they mentioned last night. Teddy Bridgewater. I wouldn't mind Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is another guy that's played a lot of football in his career. Very knowledgeable as a veteran type guy and a great leader. So I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. He's another guy who can win you a couple games. The only thing that scares me with Teddy Bridgewater is injuries. Can he stay healthy? That's the scariest thing about Teddy Bridgewater. Is like, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Because I just mentioned if one of your guys go down, it seemed like when Teddy Bridgewater does get in the game, he ends up getting hurt as well. That's been his kind of Achilles heel, is his injury history. So the 3 guys that I say that I've heard out of the names that we've kind of thrown out there that I would be interested in is Taylor Heineke, Teddy Bridgewater, and okay, I didn't see this one here. Someone says Mike White from the New York Jets. I think he might. Is he still under contract, D. Coleman? Because that's a name that I hadn't seen. Mike White. He definitely played well with the Jets as their backup, but I don't know if he's a free agent. If he's a free agent, I wouldn't mind him, but I think he's more like a pocket quarterback. So I don't know. We kind of want somebody that can scramble, that can actually come in and do similar things to what Desmond Ridder can actually do. So I don't know about Mike White, because to me he's more of a traditional quarterback. But with that being said, we're gonna jump into the next topic, which is going to be free agency and draft talk. I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on the free agency and guys that you would like the Falcons to go after. I mean, at this point, we seen, I guess it was yesterday, that we're not getting Daron Payne because he's a guy that actually was franchise tagged by the Washington Commanders. So even though he's a guy that he was like my number one guy that I was going after in free agency. If I were the Falcons, I was going to throw as much money at him as possible to see if he would come to play with the Atlanta Falcons and help Grady Jarrett on the inside of the defensive line. But at this point, being that he got franchise tag, that was wishful thinking, thinking that we were going to be able to get a Daron Payne. So I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on who you guys would like to see. And shouts out to my bro for another $6 super chat. He says, got to get back to the music grind, bro. Love you, man. Enjoy the rest of your stream. I appreciate you joining, man. Appreciate you showing love as always, man. But like I said, I want to get you guys' thoughts on free agency. What guys you guys want to, y'all think we should go after? Should we go after, he says, Mike White's unrestricted free agent? Okay. Well, Mike White is an unrestricted free agent. Then I definitely think that he's a guy we could take a look at, but he'll be the last guy out of all of the guys that we mentioned. And RC Plane Builder 2 says Carson Wentz. I definitely wouldn't go with Carson Wentz. As much as I actually like Carson Wentz, I think at this point, I don't think we can actually do it. Carson Wentz is one of those guys that believes he's a starter, and I don't even think he would actually come to Atlanta as a backup. I really think that Carson Wentz wants to be a starter. If he wouldn't mind being a backup, I wouldn't mind bringing Carson Wentz in because I was a Carson Wentz fan. But at this point, I don't know if Carson Wentz wants to be if he wants to be a backup. And he's another guy that kind of had a lot of injuries, and it kind of his career's been kind of in a downward spiral ever since he left Philly. So I don't know about Carson Wentz as a backup. I think he would want to go somewhere where he can have a chance to start, and that's not here in Atlanta. Let's see. And shouts out to my wife in the chat. She says, my favorite sportscaster. I appreciate the $5 super chat. I appreciate that. And let's see here. These comments is coming quick, so I appreciate you guys with all of the comments. Let's see. Shout out to my boy Jamiris. He says, I would like for us to get OG Bobby Wagner. I wouldn't actually mind Bobby Wagner on this team if we didn't bring back a guy like Rashaan Evans. But personally, I would rather have Rashaan Evans. I know that might sound blasphemous, but at this point, Bobby Wagner, he's still a good player, but he's kind of lost a step at this point in his career. He played pretty well last year for the Rams, but he's lost a step. If you watch Bobby Wagner play, he still plays with heart, and he still has played at that championship level. Like, he has that championship medal and that championship pedigree because he played with Seattle all of those years on those championship defenses. And I wouldn't mind a Bobby Wagner. I just think that he's going to want top dollar, and he's kind of long in the tooth. Like, he's getting older. So at this point, I think I would go with a guy like Rashaan Evans. If it came down to Bobby Wagner and Rashaan Evans, I think you'll be able to bring back Rashaan Evans, and he probably will want less money because he doesn't have all of the accolades that a guy like Bobby Wagner has as far as the Pro Bowls and, being that top linebacker, or known as the best linebacker. And this is similar to the video that I did about Jalen Ramsey. It's sometimes you got to be careful with getting these veteran guys that have been great players in the past because they want top dollar just based upon their name. Just coming in off top, they're going to want. He's probably going to ask for top dollar because he knows he's kind of getting towards the end he's on the back end of his career. So at this point, I'm good on Bobby Wagner. I mean, I wouldn't mind it if you somehow are not able to bring back Rashaan Evans for whatever reason, or if this coaching staff doesn't like Rashaan Evans for their scheme and they want to bring in a guy like Bobby Wagner, I wouldn't mind because Bobby Wagner he's getting so Bobby Wagner he's off the step. The coaching was because I said I want to hear from you guys. He says Noah Brown, that's the wide receiver from the Cowboys. I'll say a note to Noah. I'm a Noah Brown fan. Zach Allen, I don't mind. He's the guy, like a rotational guy you can play on the defensive line. Shy Tuttle Saints, I wouldn't mind him coming over as well because he played under Ryan Nielsen in that defensive scheme with Dennis Allen and the Saints, and he understands the scheme, and he's a big dude. So I wouldn't mind bringing him in as a big body. Alex Anzalone, I wouldn't bring in Alex Anzalone. I know he's a former Saint as well. Especially not a fan of his as far as linebacker play. I think he's just a downhill linebacker, and I think to be honest, way better than Alex Anzalone. But I appreciate the thing. The only there that I probably wouldn't mind signing with the Falcons is Shy Tuttle out of those 4 guys that you named. Let's see here. Andrew G, as I mentioned, it says new member, but he's been a part of my membership. So Andrew G, you guys definitely go ahead and hit it, and you want to be a member of my channel. If you want me to do certain videos upon having like dibs on videos you want me to do, if you're a member, that's one of the perks of being a member of Jew Talk Sports. You know, you do get first dibs on if it's a player you want to get or a CEO that you want me to do on my channel. I definitely give first dibs to the members. About the shadow right here, I like this comment as well. He said Ryan, he can mentor Ritter and retire a Falcon. I don't know. What you guys think about that? What you guys think about Matt Ryan coming back to the Atlanta Falcons? I don't think that it will happen because the Falcons are not really known for tracking. But I did see Matt Ryan recently at an Atlanta Hawks game, so I don't know what that was all about. I don't know if it's just because he's a fan of the Atlanta Hawks, Trey Young, or mainly because he probably still has his house in Atlanta because they lived there for a decade, almost a decade and a half. The Falcons bring him back, but I don't look at Atlanta. That would be interesting. I don't know what you guys think about Matt Ryan coming back to the Falcons. That's really interesting. I hadn't really gave it any thought, but that would be interesting if they brought him back. Maybe bring him back as a coach, but I don't know about as a player. Now, Matt Ryan still has some left in the tank. I mean, he would be a great mentor for a guy like this. I just don't know if at this point they're going to go back down that path, and I don't really know how Matt Ryan feels because it kind of ended a little bit ugly with him leaving the Falcons, with us going after Deshaun Watson. Let's see here. And shout out to Norman Fitzgerald. Get it. And this is an interesting comment. He says if Jalen Carter is there at 8, you get Jalen Carter. Most definitely. Jalen Carter is like the number one. Jalen Carter is there. Any way he's still there at 8, you gotta take him. Like no questions asked. You sprint up to the podium and turn in that card you turn in that draft card for Jalen Carter. But I know guys kind of seen today, heard in the news, there was a warrant put out for his arrest due to the accident that had taken place. We know how much truth is. He says he's innocent. So I always say innocent to prove him. He did have to leave the combine, turn himself in, go to basically communicate with authorities and stuff like that. That basically prove. So I wish Jalen Carter nothing but the best. But he is a freak athlete, and he is definitely a guy. If he's there at 8, hands down, you got to take him. He'll definitely be a game wrecker and definitely a guy that we've been waiting on for as far as Grady Jarrett. And Brian Peoples, this is another great a great linebacker that's kind of going under the radar. And he's a guy that I wouldn't mind having over Bobby Wagner, and that's Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds is the middle linebacker for the Buffalo Bills, and I think he's kind of like going to be a cap casualty for them. He played at Virginia Tech. He's one of the better bowler I think he's been. I know he's linebackers that's like 6'4", long, rangy, can flow sideline to sideline, and he's like an all-pro. Like he has that type of skills. Can cover, can thump. He can pretty much do it all. So if you can get a Tremaine Edmonds, that would be a huge signing, and we have the money to do it. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about with a Tremaine Edmonds is I think he's like the best linebacker like in this free pool as far as guys being in their prime. He's coming off of his rookie deal with the Bills. So he's going to want like big money. He's going to get a huge contract. So I don't know how much money you want to really filter into that middle linebacker position. I would rather you go after like a big name edge rusher, or maybe bring in a guy that can affect on the defensive line. Would be a backer because last couple of years we struggled with coverage. So Tremaine Edmonds is a guy that's kind of going under the radar. I could see Falcons going after him, or I could see him, fitting perfect with the Falcons if we decide not to bring back Rashaan Evans. He's another guy that I mentioned as a veteran at that Mike linebacker position. You're set. Like you get Tremaine Edmonds and T1000, him and Anderson in the middle. That would be scary because both of those guys are both freaks, like freak athletes. So that would really, really be a crazy tandem if those guys were able to play together here in Atlanta. Let's see here. William Holmes, he says, and what's going on, William Holmes? I appreciate Jadeveon Clowney or Chandler. Is there edge rusher or defensive end? Hands down, Chandler Jones is a veteran, but Chandler Jones didn't have a good year last year with the Raiders. For some reason, big money, he didn't really play that well. So both of those guys are solid, but I think both of those guys are like rotational guys. But if it came down to those two, I guess I would have to go with Chandler Jones because Chandler Jones has done it for over a decade. He was a guy that was been with a lot of different teams, the Patriots, and he has numerous years of 10+ sacks or multiple sacks in the season. So I definitely think that Chandler Jones is the better of the two players. I just don't know, what kind of happened last year. He kind of disappointed last year, but I definitely think that Chandler Jones is one of those guys that could definitely bring something to the table. Jadeveon Clowney, he's just a guy that if you bring in Jadeveon Clowney top dollar, you bring him in on like type situation. But I think both of those guys are interesting names. Chandler Jones that I wanted the Falcons to pick up in free agency. Any money, I wouldn't mind Chandler Jones. Out of those two, I would go with Chandler Jones. And let's see here. And I appreciate you guys sending all the comments in. Let's see. Antoine Wartime TV, he says, bringing in a cornerback from Baltimore, bringing the safe in the front. Cincinnati bringing in the defensive tackle, and New Orleans think his name is Davenport. I don't like Davenport. A lot of people, I've been saying that name for the Saints. I'm not a big fan of Davenport. I think he was one of those guys with the Saints that kind of was like a bust. Like we talk about Vic Beasley. I'm not a fan of I think his name is Marcus Davenport, if I'm not mistaken, for the Saints. But last year, I think he only had like a half a sack, but he hasn't played well. Like he didn't play well with them. They drafted him, I think, in the first round, and they kind of reached, and he just didn't pan out. He has size. He's like 6'7" or 6'6", 270 pounds, or 200, between 250 and 270 pounds. He's one of those guys that has the athletic ability, but he couldn't stay healthy in New Orleans, and he didn't produce for whatever reason. So that's a name that I've been seeing because he's familiar with the scheme, but you got to produce. Like, I don't care that you know the scheme if you're not producing out there on the field. And I think that would be kind of a waste of money. But as far as the Baltimore corner, I think you might be talking about I think Marcus Peters is who you may be referring to, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat if you're talking about Marcus Peters, but I wouldn't mind Marcus Peters either. I think he's a guy, he's feast or famine. Like he's a guy that will get you a bunch of interceptions, but he also get beat on double moves and stuff like that. But I like his game because he's a guy that's not afraid to tackle, and he's a dog. He's a cousin of Marshawn Lynch, so he's a guy that's gonna talk trash. He's a guy that's gonna back it up. And he's a guy that's not afraid of big moments. So he's a big time player. Like he makes big time plays. He makes more plays than he makes mistakes. But at times he can get a little handsy, and at times he kind of loses his cool a little bit. So that's the only thing that bothers me about a guy like Marcus Peters. But I definitely wouldn't mind, definitely kicking the tires to see if Marcus Peters, if he's out there in free agency, I definitely would kick the tires on him. But Davenport, I'm good on him. I've been seeing his name a lot. I'm not a fan of Marcus Davenport's game. To me, he was a bust to me. Like, he didn't pan out for the Saints. So if we're going to get anybody from the Saints, I want it to be somebody that actually produced for them. And then I've been saying this name a lot as well. Tomlinson, Dalvin Tomlinson. I like his game a lot. He's a defensive tackle that played with the Giants and then played, I believe, with the Vikings. And I think he would be a good player. He's just a big run stuffer and a guy that can help Grady in the middle, kind of shut things down as far as the run game. So I definitely like Tomlinson. And I think he's a guy that you can get like on a mid-level deal. It's not going to cost you a whole lot to get him. So I definitely think that he would be a good like value type guy where it's not going to cost you. He's not going to break the bank to get him. And you bring in a Dalvin Tomlinson. So I wouldn't mind him as well. Let's see here. And I totally agree with Juan here on this one when he says, "Nah, they will push the narrative, a controversy about Matt trying to be a starter." And I completely agree. I really didn't think of that, but we know how this Atlanta media is. If we did bring Matt Ryan back, they probably would try to spin the narrative like he's coming here to start, or he's going to have that last, hoorah and try to win a Super Bowl before, he retires. So I definitely agree. If Desmond Ritter has one bad game or throw one incomplete pass, he would be on watch as far as getting benched as far as it comes to the Atlanta media. So I agree with that. That's one reason I wouldn't want Matt Ryan back. But the sensible people know, I think Matt Ryan could bring some things to Atlanta, and I think he wouldn't step on too many toes. But I think Matt Ryan wants to be a starter. Like, he's competitive. So I don't think if he did come back to Atlanta, I would be shocked because I really think that Matt Ryan wants to be a starter as well. I don't think he's trying to come back just to hold a clipboard. And shouts out to my boy Mad Mike. He says with the $2 super chat, he says, "What about Pat Peterson opposite AJ?" That's one that I really, really like. And this is a name that Mike threw out on his channel as well. So you guys definitely go check out his video about Patrick Peterson. And I think he talked about it as well in one of their live shows as well. Patrick Peterson is a guy that I would love in Atlanta because, for one thing, I heard rumors that he kind of wants to play in Atlanta. I'm not too sure why. I don't know if it has something to do with the coaching staff here, the scheme, or if he kind of wants to come to Atlanta because of the weather, because a lot of those older players don't like being in cities where it's cold, and he's playing in Minnesota. So it gets really cold in Minnesota, and he's used to being out in Arizona where it's warm. So I definitely think him and AJ, they probably would easily be the best tandem, or at least the top 3 tandem in the NFL if we were able to get a Patrick Peterson. And he's another guy, like I mentioned, I think he said during the Super Bowl when they talked to him, he was down there at Radio Row, and he talked about wanting to play, I think, like 2 or 3 more years. So you can get Patrick Peterson on like probably like a 2 or 3 year deal with an option for the last year to be like exempt or voided out. So I would love Patrick Peterson being here. To me, he's been one of my favorite cornerbacks all time. Believe it or not, my favorite position is the cornerback position because of Deion Sanders. Growing up, I love cornerback position in secondary. As much as I talk about the trenches on my channel, because I understand that the trenches win games, the position that I love the most is the defensive back position. So Patrick Peterson is one of my all-time favorite, like top 5, top 10 corners of all time. So I definitely think he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. and definitely one of the best cornerbacks in his generation. So Patrick Peterson would be crazy opposite side of AJ. Like you talking about a no-fly zone, that would definitely be a no-fly zone with those two guys. Like on the outside, and then Patrick Peterson is the guy who's not as afraid or who can go and play like in a slot as well. So I definitely wouldn't mind Patrick Peterson. But shouts out to my boy Mad Mike. I appreciate the super chat, man. And let me grab this super chat as well. And I appreciate you guys showing me all this love, man. Sending those super chats. Big Ant with a $5 super chat. He says, what about bringing in John Johnson at safety? So that's another name that I actually seen. He played for the Browns. John Johnson is a solid safety, but I don't really know if the Falcons necessarily need a John Johnson. I actually like Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins. I wouldn't mind John Johnson. But to me, if you're going to try to go out and get like a veteran guy, why not go with like a Jesse Bates? Now, I know it's been rumors that other teams are looking at Jesse Bates and probably going to try to give Jesse Bates like outbid us for him. And if that happens, then, you know, it is what it is. Maybe John Johnson is like that consolation, you know, prize where, okay, we didn't get Jesse Bates. So maybe we can get like John Johnson on a smaller contract. But he's a veteran guy, so I wouldn't mind bringing him in because I believe you need veterans on all levels of your defense. So I wouldn't mind a John Johnson coming in as a safety. He's a guy, like I said, is a veteran, and he definitely could do some things and bring something to the table. He definitely could help Jalen Hawkins and Richie Grant as far as like film study and stuff like that. But overtaking those guys as like a starter, I think I don't know about that. I think you'll be better off bringing back like Isaiah Oliver and let him play safety, I think, over like a John Johnson. The only way I think I'll go out and get safety is if it's like a game changer. That's the only way I think that you see Hawkins or Richie Grant being benched or being like a reserve player is if you bring in like a Jesse Bates. But John Johnson, I wouldn't mind bringing him in. As I always talk about, you need as much depth as possible. So John Johnson is a guy that's a veteran, so I wouldn't mind it. But I appreciate the super chat, Big Ant. And let's see. I'm trying to keep up with you guys' comments. There's a lot of comments coming into in the chat, but I appreciate that. Let's see here. And shouts out to YMOF Jamal. He said, "What up? What's the word?" Nothing much, man. We just talking about draft talk. We're talking about free agency, and I kind of want you guys to also drop in the chat guys that you guys are interested in the draft, because we kind of been talking about free agency, but I also kind of wanted to linger a little bit into draft talk as well. Like personally, I've been looking at the edge rushers. If you guys notice, the videos that I've been doing mainly has been about edge rushers. I will be dropping some videos soon. The next prospect I'm doing will be covering will be Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon. I'm a huge fan of his. I've been watching some tape and stuff of him, and I definitely think that he got to an 8. If the guy that they really could definitely see trying to create with an Agent Terrell, and you don't have to worry about bringing in like a Patrick Peterson and bringing in a veteran guy that played that quarterback too. But let's see here. And shouts out to Terry. He says, Jew. Let's see. Hey, I haven't been hiding out, man. I actually like my live stream was actually restricted for a little while. So I've been set free. So I appreciate you guys, man, bearing with me. It's been about almost a month since my live stream, since I did a show. So I appreciate you guys, man. But I'll be giving you guys live shows every Wednesday night consistently during the off season moving forward. So appreciate y'all supporting your boy. Let's see here. And Michael says that Peterson might cost too much. Now, I don't think Patrick Peterson is going to cost too much. I think you can definitely get him on a reasonable deal because he's kind of long in the tooth as well. He's an older cornerback. He's good. You can probably get him on a good deal. You know, you can probably get him on like I think Mike answered in the chat, like $5-10 million a year maybe. He probably just gonna mainly be looking for guarantees, if anything. So I think you bring in a guy like Pat P and not kind of have to pay him too much money. The guys you're gonna have to pay top dollar for is like Jalen Ramsey, guys that still feel like they kind of in their prime. Those guys are gonna be looking for that top dollar, and he kind of already has said that he wants a new contract, and I think that's the only reason the Rams are trying to look to move a guy like Jalen Ramsey is because he's asking for a top dollar, like he wants a new contract. Let's see. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. And I'll talk to my boy Isaac Crowns, man. I appreciate you joining me tonight as well. He always comments on the video, so I appreciate the love. He says Tyree Wilson, and this is a name right here that's top 3 on my draft board right now. Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. This dude is a freak, 6'7", 250, 60 something pounds, and a beast. Long arms, still a little bit raw. Like he doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves. He just outpowers a lot of people and out athletics a lot of guys in college. He really didn't have great technique yet, but I think working with a Ryan Nielsen, working with this defensive staff, I think Tyree Wilson could turn into a guy like a Myles Garrett. He has the athleticism to turn into like a Myles Garrett. So I definitely think if Tyree Wilson is there, I'm taking him. Myles Murphy, those are like my 2 top edge rushers in this draft class. So I definitely think that Tyree Wilson, if he's there at 8, it's a no-brainer. You gotta take him. Other than Myles Murphy, he's the guy that I would be looking at. And this is an interesting question as well. It says, how would you upgrade the wide receiver room? And this is another video that I want to make as well to talk about some of the guys that are free agents. But if I were the Falcons, I would really look at possibly going out and getting Alan Lazard that played with the Green Bay Packers. Now, I know he's a guy that could want big money, and that's the reason why I don't think the Falcons will get him in free agency. But if you can get Alan Lazard and pair him with Pitts and pair him with London, Alan Lazard is like 6'5", 250 pounds, 220 pounds. I think he's like 220 pounds, but he's a guy that I definitely think if the Falcons can get him, he's similar to a Drake London. I think he's a little bit faster than a Drake London, so he's more of a deep threat than Drake London, but he's a guy that can high point the football. We've seen that Desmond Ridder is a guy that's not afraid to throw the ball up in space and give his guys opportunities to go up, climb the ladder and go get the ball. And Alan Lazard is a guy that I kind of have in free agency. He would cost a lot of money, but that would be my dream scenario for the Falcons at upgrading the wide receiver room. You do have lesser guys out there that you could possibly get, like Robert Woods, the former Ram, and I forget who he played. I think the Tennessee Titans is who he played with last year. But Robert Woods, the only thing that scares me about him is just the injuries. Like he got injured the year they won the Super Bowl, and then he got injured again, got nicked up with the Titans as well. So only thing that scares me about Robert Woods is the injuries. But if you want a guy that is a route technician, Robert Woods would be a great number 2 pairing as well, because he's a guy that can go into the slot. He's a guy that runs every route on a route tree. So I definitely think that he could be one of those guys that could be a great chain mover. Like on third down, he's almost impossible to stop on those option routes and things of that nature because of his skill set. The biggest thing I worry about with him is those injuries. But those would be the 2 guys that I'm kind of focused on, would be Robert Woods and then would be Alan Lazard. Now, a name that Mike threw out, and I think I wouldn't mind either, is Mecole Hardman that played with the Kansas City Chiefs. Because of his speed, he can take the top off the defense. And if you don't bring back DirtyBird, or if you don't bring back Olamide Zaccheaus, I think he can play like a similar role to what those guys were doing for our team, like catching bubble screens, doing reverses, and taking the top off the defense. That's something that Mecole Hardman definitely could do for this team. And we really don't have now that gadget type wide receiver anymore, like a smaller guy, because Olamide Zaccheaus, DirtyBird, all of those guys are free agents. I definitely think that a guy like Mecole Hardman could kind of do what those guys were doing for our team, but maybe do it at a little bit of a higher level because of his speed. I think Mecole Hardman might be faster than OZ and faster than DirtyBird, even though DirtyBird can fly. So I don't know. And DirtyBird actually played well. So I wouldn't even mind back DirtyBird or even bringing back Olamide Zaccheaus, because those guys are kind of like the glue guys of the team. So, and we know Arthur Smith loves Olamide Zaccheaus. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see number 17 Olamide Zaccheaus back with the Falcons. And I seen this as well. They talked about Tyree Wilson. This is something that I seen as well on social media. They talked about him meeting with the Atlanta Falcons. And he's a guy that like I said, I could really see with the Falcons because of what we do, as far as he's like a traditional defensive end. He's a bigger, long, lanky type edge rusher or defensive end. And that's kind of what Ryan Nielsen and the Saints, that's how they kind of built their defense and their defensive line. They built their defensive line with size and length. And that's something that I definitely think that the Falcons are going to covet in this draft, if they're looking to get a little bit bigger on the defensive line, bigger on the offensive line, and be a more physical, a more physical team in the trenches. So I definitely think that Tyree Wilson, what I like best about Tyree Wilson, not just his size, but his ability to play the run. I think that that's something that kind of goes overlooked when we look at edge rushers. We always talk about, well, can this guy get to the quarterback? Can this guy limit these running backs on first and second down? Because that's really what's really hurt our Falcons over the last couple of years, is not being able to limit teams to, minimum yardage or negative plays on first down. Like, how about hitting the running back in the backfield for a loss of 1 or 2 and making it 2nd and 12 or 3rd and, we got to get more negative. So I think that that's something Tyree Wilson that a lot of people really don't talk about. We just talk about, can this person get to the quarterback on 3rd down? But if you can, muck it up during 1st and 2nd down and play that rough, tough, football in the trenches and limit those yardage on 1st and 2nd down, as far as limiting running backs yard per carry, I think that will bode well as well. So Tyree Wilson is currently Miles Murphy. Those 2 guys are like my favorite, edge rushers. Those are the names you hear all the time. The kid out of USC that I did a video on, Tui Pelotu, he's another guy I really, really like. Like, I don't think that the Falcons will take him at 8, because that would be like a huge reach. But he got some moves, man. He got that skill set that I liked as well, because he's another guy that's a bigger defensive end, like 6'4", 290. Like, he's a real big guy, but he moves well for his size. And he's another guy that's a beast in the run game. Like, he's going to shut the run down. And then he's also going to, get after the quarterback and crash the pocket and stuff like that on 3rd down. So that's another name that a lot of people are not talking about, but I definitely suggest y'all check my video out that I did on Tui Pelotu. And shout out to Byron Johnson. I appreciate you joining. He says, Jew, let's hear that good football talk. Yeah, I'm trying to give y'all that great football talk, man. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I appreciate you guys joining me. We have 40 in the chat, so I appreciate you guys, man. It's been a long time coming, so I've been chomping at the bit to talk to you guys. Now, with that being said, because we're winding down on the show, I do want to get you guys thoughts and questions as far as fan Q&A as well. We still can do draft talk if you have some questions about the draft, but I do want to also open it up for fan Q&A before we close it down tonight. So if you guys got questions, definitely drop those questions in the chat. But I have a bunch of questions in the chat. I see here a bunch of you guys commenting and things of that nature. So I appreciate that as well. Let's see here. And just to jump on this comment real quick, because I think this is interesting. Ocho Shadow says, I'm hearing San Fran is looking for a veteran QB. They could bring in Matt Ryan. That would be a perfect spot for Matt Ryan, because last year, if they would have had him on their roster in that NFC Championship game, we might be having a whole different conversation about how that game ended. Not saying that they would have beat the Eagles, but they would have had a better chance at beating the Eagles. So if Matt Ryan is going to go anywhere at this point in his career, I think a team like the 49ers, because he's worked with Kyle Shanahan, that would be like a match made in heaven. I definitely think that would be a good move, because they are a ready-made team to win now. And, they have a great defense, a great running game. Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller, and maybe they can right the wrong. Maybe Kyle Shanahan can right the wrong that he did here in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. But that would be a match made in heaven if Matt Ryan is going to go anywhere. But, I mean, they have a lot of QBs there, too. Brock Purdy played well, and they have Trey Lance as well. So I don't know how that will work out. But if Matt Ryan was going to go anywhere, I think that would be a good pickup for them. And D. Coleman says, I like Van Ness too. There's plenty of good edges. Van Ness, I seen his highlight tape. I'm going to do a video on him as well. He played at Iowa. He's another guy at the Combine that talked to the Atlanta Falcons, and they interviewed him. I like his game as well, but I think he's still a little bit raw as well. So they're going to have to kind of work with him if they brought him in. He's kind of going to be like a project. I don't think he'll be a guy that comes in day one necessarily and can be a game changer. But you guys know I believe in strength in numbers, and those Iowa players are tough as nails. They've had guys like Bob Sanders back in the day at safety. They've had numerous guys. We can look at our team. Parker Hesse, he went to Iowa. So Iowa's known for having those guys that like the blue collar type players that are really, really good. So Lucas Van Ness is one of those guys that I definitely think kind of has went under the radar as well. And the Falcons, maybe our scouts may find a gem, because I do think he's a guy. He has size 6'4", 6'5"-ish, 200. And I think he's like in the 250 to 260 range. But I do think he's also a guy that's kind of been kind of secretly been out there with Atlanta Falcons, like that they're interested in him. So I wouldn't mind doubling up. Maybe you take him in the second round. I don't know if I would take him at 8. I think that would be a little too high to take Van Ness. But you guys know what my premise is in this draft. We gotta come away with some defensive talent in this first round. I don't want to see no offensive players drafted. I don't want an offensive lineman. I don't want any wide receivers. I don't want any quarterbacks. If anything, if you're gonna trade back, I still want you to draft defense. The only way I see the Falcons taking like an offensive player is if they trade out of the first round altogether. Then that's a whole different story. But if I'm the Falcons, I'm going defense. Like, it's a lot of talent in this draft, but I'm going defense. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons take 2 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds. So look out for that. You might get Tyree Wilson and then turn around in the second round and get like a Lucas Van Ness if he's somehow still on the board. Let's see. And what's going on, Tony Wright? He says, why not trade a 5th-round pick for Denzel Mims and make him wide receiver number 2, complement Drake London and Kyle Pitts? Denzel Mims, I don't know a whole lot about him. I know he's a big physical wide receiver that played with the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know a lot about him as far as his games, to be honest with you. I would have to go in, watch some highlights and watch some tape to actually be honest, to see how good he is. But I know he has like a bigger frame. I know he's like 6'2" or 6'3", so he's a bigger wide receiver, which our head coach and our coaching staff kind of likes these bigger physical wide receivers that can block down the field in the running game, and also that can go across the middle and make those catches in tight windows. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went after Denzel Mims. I haven't heard a lot out of him though since he was drafted by the Jets. So I think he's been a guy that's kind of been injury prone. So I don't know too much about Denzel Mims, but that's a name that I definitely think it would be interesting. And let's see, I'm gonna scroll down some. And Dreddy, what's going on? He says, what's good, Jew? Do you honestly think Jalen Carter will slip to 8 with these legal issues he's going through? I don't think that he's going to fall to 8, to be honest. I think he's too good of a talent, and we know the leash is long when you're a great player, period. Offense, defense, whatever position you play. If you're a great player, we've seen that with Deshaun Watson and all of those cases that was out there on him. He ended up getting $230 million guaranteed. So that just goes to show you, I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on him, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, I mean, I don't think that Jalen Carter I don't think that those legal issues are gonna have any effect unless he gets some type of jail time or something crazy. That's the only way I see that, him possibly dropping. But if everything is everything like he says it is, and that, from what he's saying, that he is innocent and that he didn't really do anything wrong in the situation, if ends up being the case, I don't think he falls to 8. I think it's too many teams in front of us that value defense, like the Seahawks, the Bears, all of those teams ahead of us. A lot of those teams like going defense. The Cardinals, I don't see none of those teams allowing the Falcons, unless the Falcons trade up. That's the only way I think that Jalen Carter falls in the draft to us. I don't think the legal issues are going to be the reason he falls. But if he somehow falls to 8, I think the Falcons got to roll the dice. I think the Falcons are going to roll the dice. Even if he has some type of, a little bit of legal ramifications, I think the Falcons are going to roll the dice if he's there at 8 because he's too good of a talent. And Eric Mack says, which do we need the most, defensive tackle or edge? Defensive tackle. Edge rushers, you can find those kind of a dime of a dozen if you got good pressure up the middle. Like if you can get another elite guy in the middle next to Grady Jarrett, you can mix and match those edges. You can mix and match guys because we got Arnold Ebiketie, we got D'Angelo Malone. You'll have a chance to take Van Ness. These guys I'm talking about, Tyree Wilson, these guys will be there for you. So what it's really going to come down to is what are the Falcons going to actually do? Like, are they going to bring in defensive tackle in free agency and then go edges, draft edges in the draft? Or are they going to go edge rusher in free agency and then they're going to try to draft a defensive tackle? Like, that's what it's really going to come down to. But I don't know which way they're going to go. But I think that's how they're going to kind of play it. They're going to bring in one or the other in free agency, one or the other in the draft. And they might double dip. Like, even if they bring in an edge, a veteran edge rusher, I think they still at some point with the 9 picks we have, they're going to take another edge rusher. Same thing with defensive tackle. They're going to probably take a defensive tackle in the draft as well, unless they're able to get a couple veteran, guys to play on the inside. So, but I think we need both. But I would say I would go defensive. We need defensive tackle more. Brian Peoples, shouts out to Brian Peoples for the 199 super chat. I appreciate it. He says, great show, Jew. I want Jack Campbell in the 8. Jack Campbell's another name that's been thrown out a lot. I haven't had the chance yet to actually look at his film and stuff like that and look at his highlights. But I believe he's the Iowa linebacker. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if he's the Iowa linebacker, he's another name that's kind of been like everybody's saying he's a really, really good linebacker. He's like a top 3 linebacker in this draft. So I definitely would check him out as well and see, if he's about that life. But from what I'm hearing, everybody's saying that he's a guy that they really like. So I definitely will check him out. And I appreciate that super chat. And I'll also do a video on him because his name has kind of been floating out there as one of the popular names. It's possibly guys that the Falcons should look at as far as linebackers, but I definitely will check him out and see what he has. Let's see. And Mike says, "I'm good on trading for wide receivers, rather draft them." Yeah, I agree. You can develop wide receivers. You see that with the Kansas City Chiefs. And you see that with all of these teams. We've seen it with Drake London, like last year. Pretty much all of the wide receivers that went tops in the draft last year, Chris Olave, Drake London, the kid with the Jets, Wilson, all of those guys had really good seasons for rookies. All of them almost went over 1,000. I think Drake didn't get over I think Drake did get over 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, all of those guys played well last season. So the skill position, running backs, wide receivers, those are also dime a dozen. You can find those guys. So, Michael says Jack was compared to Urlacher. Oh man, if he was compared to Urlacher, I definitely need to check him out then, because as I told you guys, my family, they're all Chicago Bears fans. Yeah, I was born in Chicago. All my family's in Chicago. So if he's on Urlacher's level, then I definitely got to check him out. But if he's up there like that, then the Falcons, if they trade back, they might take him in the first round or second round, early second round if he's on that level. But I'd rather have Rashaan Evans, to be honest. If I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know, what the deal is, but if I'm the Falcons, I'm making it my business that Rashaan Evans is one of the first people I'm calling in free agency to see if he want to come back to Atlanta, and be like the leader of the defense, because he's just a veteran guy. He's a signal caller. To me, you need a guy that's, as far as a linebacker, you got to be cerebral. You got to understand the game. You got to be able to read and react. And you got to be able to tell other players what to look for, where to be, getting guys in position and getting guys lined up and stuff. Other than the safeties on the back end, the linebackers like the signal caller and the guy that's in the middle of that defense making the call. So you really have to have a guy that knows what he's doing. So if I'm the Falcons, I'm sticking with Rashaan Evans. But if they decide not to bring back Rashaan Evans, then maybe go after, this Jack Campbell or one of these guys, these top linebackers. But personally, I would prefer sticking with Rashaan Evans. To me, he did enough last year to prove he deserved another contract. In free agency, Tony Wright says in free agency, we should try and sign Javon Hargraves and Yannick Ngakoue. Here's why. Taquan Graham, Javon Hargraves, Grady Jarrett, Yannick Ngakoue. Now that looks like yeah, that would be a solid defensive line. I mean, I like Yannick Ngakoue. I love Javon Hargraves. Like, to me, he should be the guy that has that the crosshairs for the Atlanta Falcons should be on his back. Like, he's the guy that we should be trying to go after. Now that Deron Payne has been franchise tagged, that would be the next guy that I'm looking at. If you're trying to make a big splash in free agency at that defensive tackle position, Grady Jarrett and Hargraves in the middle would be crazy. Like, those guys, they will be. Hargraves, I believe, had double-digit sacks playing the defensive tackle position on that Eagles defensive line. Now, another guy that I think is going under the radar, and I also wanted to do a video about, and he was a partner of Hargraves that everybody's kind of looking over, is Fletcher Cox that played with the Eagles. He's a veteran. He's only 32. So he's kind of getting long in the tooth as well, getting a little bit older, getting up there in age. But to me, he still has a lot left in the tank. And he's a guy, if you put him next to Grady Jarrett, he's going to shut the run down. He's going to cut the run off. So that's something that I wouldn't mind seeing as well. And I think he may be a little bit cheaper. Like, if you don't want to make that big splash in free agency, you don't want to pay top dollar, because Javon Hargraves, behind Deron Payne, Javon Hargraves is like that next guy that's going to get top tier dollars because he balled out with Philly. So if you don't want to have to pay, you want to get a guy like on a discounted type deal. If you want to get multiple guys, maybe you go Fletcher Cox instead of Javon Hargraves. But I think Fletcher Cox is probably I'll say he's a little bit at this point, because he's getting up there in age. I would say Javon Hargraves is probably a little bit better as far as being a pass rusher. But as far as stopping the run, both Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargraves, both of those guys are, right there neck and neck. Both of those guys to stop the run. Both of those guys can collapse the pocket. And both of those guys basically would be just there to free up Grady Jarrett. But Javon Hargraves, he's a pass rusher. Like, that dude is a beast. So if we can get either one of those guys, I think we'll be good. But with that being said, I'm going to get ready to wind it down a little bit. And he says Yannick is a beast. Yeah, Yannick Ngakoue is a pretty good pass rusher. I thought he would be a little bit better when he came out of college. I thought he was going to be a little bit better. He had a couple down seasons, and he kind of got traded. I think he was on like 2 or 3 teams. Like, he was on 1-year deals, or he got traded a couple times when he left Jacksonville. But I do think Yannick Ngakoue still is a guy you can bring him in and have him be like a rotational guy. I don't think he needs to be a guy that necessarily plays all 3 downs. But if you want to bring in a guy similar to what we did when we had Adrian Claiborne here all of those years, that's what I look at Yannick Ngakoue is, like a pass rush specialist. Like, you're going to use him in certain situations. You're not going to necessarily use him on first and second down all the time to set the edge. You're going to use him like on 3rd and longs, or in situations where you want your pass rushers out there on the field. that's when you're going to use a Yannick Ngakoue. So I definitely think he would be solid as well because of his ability to get after the passer. So he's kind of like a specialist. Let's see. Tony says that defensive line that with our young linebackers and re-signing Rashaan Evans gives us a formidable defensive line. Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, that would be a great scenario. Like if we can somehow get Ngakoue and get Javon Hargraves, yeah, we'll be in there. And then you still have that draft capital, so you could like add a Tyree Wilson or add one of those other guys in the draft, Miles Murphy. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking on the defensive line. So I definitely think that would be special if we can get them. And let's see. And he says Fletcher Cox is going into his 12th year. Yeah, he's going into his 12th year. And you said Javon Hargraves going into his 8th year. Yeah, both of those guys are right there neck and neck. But Fletcher Cox got him by a couple years. So I think that Fletcher might not get as much money as Javon Hargraves. Javon Hargraves is still a guy that's like in his prime. I don't know if you can say the same thing for Fletcher Cox, but I would like either one of those guys. If you can lure one of those guys from Philly, if they just decide to let those guys walk, then I definitely think that you definitely gotta take one of those guys. Natalie, what's going on? She says, thanks, Ju. No doubt, man. I enjoy doing this, going live and talking Atlanta Falcons football with you guys as always. I'm getting ready to wind it down. I may take like one or two more comments, and then we're going to wind it down. But I appreciate you guys joining. I appreciate each and every one of you guys' super chats. And I appreciate you guys hitting the like button, sharing out my content. Also, hitting the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button for your boy. It does wonders for us over here. So I appreciate if you guys will hit the subscribe button, help your boy get to 2,000, help your boy get more exposure. Not just me, but Mad Mike Sports, just Six Man K Styles, Atlanta Falcons Nation. Make sure you guys definitely show us all some love. The Unholy Alliance, shout out to those boys as well. The OGs, we appreciate them as well. They join us on our shows and stuff like that as well. So definitely continue to hit that like, hit that subscribe button, continue to share and show support to all of our Atlanta Falcons content creators. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for continuing to share out this content. And I see Alex, he just jumped in, it looks like, and he's threw out a couple names. So let's see. I'm going to grab a couple more of his comments. I don't know if I'm coming back tomorrow. He says come back tomorrow, Jew. I don't know if I'm coming back tomorrow for a live show, but I did hear that they might go live on Friday night for Friday Night Madness. So maybe I might sneak in and give you guys a cameo and jump in with the fellas and talk Falcons football with you guys. But I also want to do like when we do our heavy hitter show, I definitely want to do fan basically open it up to the fans where you guys can come on and chat with us as well. So that's something to look forward to probably at the end of this month. We're going to try to have you guys on because I do want to do like a call-in show where you guys can come in and basically give me your comments and your thoughts live here on the show with your boy Jew, with me, with K-Styles, with Mad Mike. So that's something that I definitely would like to do because usually when we go live and they do the call-in shows, usually it's just Mike and K-Styles. I'm usually not up there with them. So I'd love to chat with you guys and get you guys' thoughts here live as well. And let's see. All right, so I was trying to see if he had a question here. Let's see. So Alex says, if Wilson is off the board at 8, I think we probably go. Now I'm assuming this guy's the offensive tackle that he threw in here. I don't know how to say his name, but I do think that the Falcons could go there. And I also see the kid Jones, which I think he's the offensive tackle out of Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, Alex. I like both of those guys. I don't think that I don't know if either one of those guys will necessarily be drafted by the Falcons if we bring back Caleb McGarry. But I know in the next couple of weeks we're going to have free agency. So once free agency opens up and we see what the Falcons do in free agency, then it could possibly open up the door for us to take like an offensive lineman. I don't know if they'll take an offensive lineman early in the draft. If we keep a guy like Caleb McGarry on the roster, as far as if they somehow are able to re-sign him, but if they're not able to re-sign Caleb McGarry, then I think that opens the door for anything's possible at that point. Maybe they take an offensive lineman in the first round. But with that being said, you guys, I'm gonna get ready to wrap up here. I appreciate you guys, like I said, joining me tonight. We had about 50 or 45 in the chat, so I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I'll definitely holler at you guys next Wednesday night for What's the Word Dirty Bird as well. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll possibly do a video. We're going to have a lot more content coming for you guys in regards to prospect videos, free agency, Atlanta Falcons news, with guys being released, guys being signed. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. I appreciate all the love you guys continue to show. Your boy is back. With that being said, this being your boy Jew. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Have a blessed night. Peace.